Billionaire invites her janitor's son to play chess as a joke. Not knowing he was a genius the room was filled with quiet laughter and polite smiles. It was supposed to be harmless fun. A billionaire woman, used to winning at everything in life, leaned back in her chair and casually invited a janitor's young son to play a game of chess with her. To everyone watching, it felt like a joke. A rich woman playing a poor kid. No one expected what would happen next, because sometimes, kindness mixed with pride can accidentally open a door to destiny, and that door was about to swing wide open. Before we begin, take a moment to support the channel. If you enjoy stories that restore faith in humanity, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. You're watching Kindness Story Hub, where powerful stories remind us how far kindness can go. Margaret Whitmore was one of the most successful businesswomen in America. At 58, she had built an empire from the ground up. Her tech company dominated headlines, and her name appeared on every most powerful women list. She was sharp, confident, and rarely wrong. People admired her, but they also feared her. Margaret believed in discipline, intelligence, and competition. She didn't believe much in luck. And she definitely didn't believe that talent could come from anywhere unexpected. Every Friday evening, she hosted a small gathering at her penthouse in New York. Investors, board members, and elite guests would attend. One thing Margaret loved showing off was her chessboard. She was an excellent chess player and often used the game to test people's minds. Beating someone at chess, to her, was proof of superiority. On one of those Fridays, the janitor, Carlos Ramirez, was still working late. He had been cleaning the building for over 10 years. Quiet, respectful, always on time. That evening, he had no choice but to bring his 12-year-old son, Luis, with him. Luis had nowhere else to go, and Carlos couldn't afford childcare. Luis sat in a corner of the penthouse, holding a worn backpack. He watched silently as wealthy adults laughed, drank wine, and talked about stocks and mergers. He didn't touch anything. He didn't say a word. Margaret noticed him. "Who's the kid?" she asked casually. "That's my son," Carlos said nervously. "I'm sorry, Ms. Whitmore. I'll keep him out of the way." Margaret studied Luis for a moment. The boy looked thin, shy, and serious. His eyes kept drifting toward the large marble chess table in the center of the room. Margaret smirked. "Well," she said loudly, turning to her guests, "how about a little entertainment? I'm in the mood for an easy game." She looked at Luis. "Do you know how to play chess, kid?" Luis hesitated. He glanced at his father, who looked embarrassed. "Yes, ma'am," Luis said softly. The room chuckled and Margaret stood up. "Perfect. Come on. Play a game with me." Carlos froze. "Ms. Whitmore, he's just a child." "It's just a game," Margaret said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Relax." Luis walked slowly to the table. His hands trembled as he sat down. The guests leaned in, amused. Some whispered. Others pulled out their phones, ready to capture what they thought would be a quick and funny moment. Margaret moved first. Confident. Aggressive, Luis responded carefully. At first, Margaret played lazily. She made bold moves, expecting Luis to fall into obvious traps. But something strange happened. Luis didn't point. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Margaret leaned forward. Her smile faded. Luis's moves were calm. Precise. Thoughtful. The room went quiet. Margaret tried to regain control. She focused harder. This wasn't funny anymore. This kid was actually good. No. Better than good. 20 minutes in, Margaret's queen was gone. Gasps filled the room. Carlos stood frozen, his heart pounding. Margaret's face tightened. She had never lost in front of guests before. Especially not to a child. Especially not to a janitor's son. She made one last desperate move. Luis looked at the board for a long time. Then he gently slid his piece forward. "Checkmate," he said quietly. Silence. Then someone laughed in disbelief. Another whispered, "Is this real?" Margaret stared at the board. Her chest felt tight. She had been humiliated. But underneath the shock, there was something else. A spark. "Where did you learn to play like that?" she asked, her voice low. Luis swallowed. "From library books. And watching videos. We don't have a computer, but I memorize games." Margaret looked at Carlos. "You knew about this?" Carlos shook his head. I knew he liked chess. I didn't know he was like this. The guests slowly began clapping. Not mocking. Not amused, impressed. That night, Margaret couldn't sleep. The image of the boy's calm face haunted her. She replayed the game in her mind over and over. She had invited him as a joke. She had expected to feel superior. Instead, she felt small. The next morning, Margaret did something unexpected. She called Carlos into her office. I want to help your son, she said plainly. He needs proper training. Carlos blinked. Ms. Whitmore, we can't afford. You won't have to, Margaret interrupted. I'll cover everything. She enrolled Luis in a private chess academy. Bought him books. Paid for tournaments. Even arranged tutors to help with school. At first, Luis struggled to fit in. The other kids came from wealthy families. They had fancy equipment and confidence. Luis had none of that, but he had something else: focus. Within a year, Luis began winning state-level tournaments. Within 2 years, national ones. His name started appearing online. People called him a prodigy. A genius. Reporters asked Margaret why she supported him. She always answered honestly, because I underestimated him, she said. And kindness gave me a second chance to do the right thing. As Luis grew older, he never forgot where he came from. He never forgot his father's tired hands. Or the night everything changed. Years later, Luis stood on a stage holding a national championship trophy. Cameras flashed. The crowd cheered. In the front row sat Carlos, crying openly, and beside him, Margaret Whitmore. After the ceremony, a reporter asked Luis, "What was the moment that changed your life?" Luis smiled. "When someone invited me to play," he said. Not because they believed in me, but because they didn't. And kindness came after. Margaret listened, her eyes wet. She had started that game as a joke, but it ended as a lesson she would carry forever. Kindness doesn't always start with good intentions. Sometimes it begins with mistakes. With pride. With underestimation, but when kindness is chosen, truly chosen, it can change lives in ways no one expects. So the next time you see someone overlooked, underestimated, or ignored, remember this story. A single invitation. A single moment. A single act of kindness. You never know whose life you might change, and maybe, just maybe, your own too.